There's actually going to be two of us talking tonight, so it's me and Nitin Malhotra as well. A little background, we worked for several years together on massively multiplayer online games, and recently decided to sort of take the jump into mobile. So this is just the, so you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, do I need this? Can people hear me okay if I don't use this?
Actually, you want to use it.
Yeah, you want to use it because in the back it's hard to hear. You want to hold
Okay.
it kind of close. There you go.
So, like Joe said, we've been in games for several years, and browser-based games for the most part. I recently made a pivot, and I'm now Senior Director of Research and Development at Cvent, which is an online event management company. But I still manage games, and we have several existing games that I still manage on the side. So we're going to talk about Corona development. Joel will take the lead on that, and we'll spend most of our time on the technology side of it. But then we also thought it'd be worthwhile to share a little bit of insight into an actual game, some of the numbers, what we experienced launching the game, and some things that are coming up with the game that we hope will come through, but we're in the middle of negotiating some things. So we'll spend a few minutes just on the business side. I think it'll be interesting for you guys to get an inside look for what that feels like and what's happening there.
So just a little background, Corona SDK is essentially a toolkit that allows you to use a language called Lua, which I had never heard of until we started doing it. It's like sort of it's a very loosely typed language, but the idea behind Corona SDK, and we used it to develop a board game that basically a friend of ours is a board game distributor, and he contacted us and said, "Hey guys, I know you're software engineers. I'm sure you guys can do some mobile stuff. You've been doing games. Do you want to work together?" So we looked at all the different sort of possibilities of frameworks that we could use, and we found Corona SDK. This little slide here demonstrates one of the big reasons that we went with Corona SDK. What you'll see here is the amount of code that you need to display an image. In Corona SDK here, you have one line, display.newImage, myimage.png. In Objective-C, you have all this goodness. Now, I mean, anybody who's done Objective-C, I mean, there's a reason for all that, but the other thing I want to focus on and mention is that in addition to being very, very simple to use, Corona compiles to both iOS and Android. You can go on your PC right now, download Corona SDK for free, and test applications in the simulator without paying a dime. If you decide that you would like to compile it for Android, you will pay. There's basically, if you want to compile for both iOS and Android, it's about $350 a year, which is nothing when you consider the costs of development.
It's really not. It's definitely a tool for building games. It's not so much a tool for building enterprise apps that conform to Apple UI standards. So it's very, very strong when it comes to certain things, not so strong when it comes to building enterprise sort of apps.
And I would even say you could say rich sort of, there's a category of rich mobile applications where you're not necessarily reliant on having the perfect list view component. They do have those components. They're not as good as the native ones that you get on your devices because this is cross-platform. But you can do some of that. So how we found out about Corona was on Good Morning America. There was a story about this 14-year-old kid who makes an app that rises to the top of the Android App Store, and it was made with Corona. And that was just kind of like how we got word of mouth. So we checked it out, and then when we started looking into it, we found this video on YouTube that we thought was really interesting. So I'll kind of just talk over it a little bit. They call it physics in 5 lines. So, like they said, working with Corona is really easy. So you want to show an image on the screen, boom, one line of code, display clouds.png. There it is, that's the simulator. Now you want to add a ground on top of it on the next layer on top. There it is. Now a crate, and you want to add the XY. Right now it's just standing there without doing anything. And then now you want to turn everything into physics bodies. A couple more lines of code. Require physics, physics.start, and register your physics bodies. So again, this is a really, really small amount of code, but with all that, about maybe 10 lines of code there, you've got your crates. So what if you want a lot of crates? Well, that's not very difficult either. So one of the things that we noticed that I found immediately super appealing was that you can find a lot of videos like this and a lot of just built-in examples of what the framework is capable of. So I'll go ahead and move on from. So you can see, what if gravity was up rather than down? You can kind of get the point. Very, very easy to do some game-related things. What I also found interesting was when you open up the simulator, so this is the simulator you get. And again, you can go download this, play with it tonight if you want for free. You see all these examples about example games and apps, right? So you can open up this button events, for instance. Here's a button 1 pressed, 1 released. 2, so you can get a very idea of how to do all of the basic things. So I think that that's sort of a standard thing that a lot of the frameworks do ship with. But what really, really knocked my socks off was the next demonstration that I'm going to show you. I'm going to open it up here in the simulator. And they call it Ghost versus Monsters. And it's basically their take on Angry Birds. So what they do, you open up this right here. And they provide you full sample code for how to create this game, Ghosts versus Monsters. So literally, they give you the entire project and show you how to do this. So if I click play here, pick my level, so I got my little guy there. And then here's my little skull, and I can fire it. And then, you get the idea. I'll do it one more time, see if I can do it a little bit better. Yeah, I haven't been playing enough Angry Birds, as you can probably tell. But the idea is, this is just one example. They also have another, if any of you have played Fruit Ninja, a really popular iOS game, they have an example that ships that basically lets you just clone that game like right out of the box. You can sub in your own art, release your own version of Fruit Ninja. So what was just so appealing was we could see how quickly we would be able to take something to market. And so what we did, and I'll just show you quickly here, this is essentially the board game that we built. So we built this application, Dabble, and this is based on a word game that you can get in stores. And I would say it took maybe, within about 10 hours of development, I had like a prototype of this game. The idea of the game is that you just create a word on all 5 rows, just by dragging and dropping tiles in between each other. And again, when I say working prototype, I just mean like, I could, it wasn't pretty or anything like that, but I very quickly had something that I could prove the concept that the game was going to be doable. So it was just really, really rewarding experience. So did you want to talk a little bit about some of that?
Yeah. So we thought it would be interesting to actually share some of the experiences we had releasing this game, Dabble. So, as Joe said, it was a board game that a friend of ours had launched. He had just launched it in the stores this past summer. So it's in Barnes & Noble and a few different toy stores. We partnered with him on a 50-50 revenue split. The agreement was we'd cover all app-related expenses. He would help market the app within the actual board game. So we didn't have an in-depth marketing strategy, but it was basically try to rely on some press releases. The original designer of the board game is an 84-year-old inventor, and he has an interesting story, so we used that as the marketing pitch. We also thought that our existing gamers of our online browser-based games, we could market to them, get a little bit of initial push. Phase 2 is to do more of the cross-promotion within the board game. So his initial batch of board games is already in the stores, so he's not able to market the apps yet, but the next batch that goes out, hopefully at Christmas time, we'll be marketing the apps within the board game. Social integration with Facebook, that's on the near-term roadmap, and also player-to-player challenges is something that's being rolled out very soon.